All right, everyone. This is Carlo here with my host, Amelia.
I'm the host.
Uh, well, co-host, I guess.
All
I've
right.
already messed up. So my brain makes a lot of weird questions, and I felt like it was funny to share the answers that Amelia has. So,
'Cause my brain makes a lot of weird answers.
first question is actually a question we had this morning. We had both gone to this restaurant, and we wanted to figure out if it was good or not, and we had come to the conclusion that it was aggressively mid. And the question I had was, what makes something aggressively mid compared to just being mid?
So mid is, like that's just something that's, average okay. The thing about that makes the restaurant aggressively mid is that the restaurant was aggressively trying to be like better. Like it was definitely a restaurant that wanted to be a high class restaurant, had really fancy things like rosemary and um commanderons or something. Something you use to make Indian food. I know I've used it before, but they put it in my coffee instead of like an Indian food. And then it's like they had like mushroom stuff. Like they had one of their lattes was like a forest scavenger hunt type latte that had like mushrooms and woodsy flavors and things. And so it was just like really trying to be like out of the box creative. Our breakfast was like sourdough with like a cheese spread that wasn't cream cheese, but a different kind of cheese, and it had like apple slices and pistachios on top of it, which objectively is fine. And so, but it's obviously trying to be like a cooler, fancier place than like your average Joe coffee shop, right? So that's what made it aggressively mid is that I mean, like the food was fine, the lattes were fine, but it's like I expected so much more out of a place that like hosted itself at like such a fancy level.
Okay, follow up to that question. If it's compensating, what would be a fair comparison to aggressively mid restaurants? Like, what's a fair comparison? Are we talking level like skateboard dude who just does longboard stuff, but like compensates it by like
So yourself?
that's wild, unnecessary stray. That's not going in the video.
I swear to God, you take that out of the video, I'm not doing this again.
I was meaning more other compensations, but you know what?
That works. Next
It
question.
works. Next question. So, we recently watched Monsters Inc.
We did?
Yeah, we did a little while back.
Okay. I don't remember when we watched Monsters Inc., but
It's
baller
okay.
movie, so it's okay.
Exactly. So, let's talk about the narrative of a class-based system, which you told me
Oh, why
in
it's
the middle class.
capitalist?
Yeah. So,
Oh, okay.
so there's a class system in the Monsters Inc. Universe. So, please inform the viewers at home about this inherently biased.
Capitalistic society.
Yes.
Well, basically, my argument was that Monsters Inc., even though it's like a great movie, beautifully animated, super fun storyline, characters that we all love, and the ending like comes off as quote unquote happy, we're still stuck in the same capitalistic society that got us into the mess in the first place. Because while we just exchange screams for laughs, we're still using the same thing. So like Monsters Inc., right? It starts as a movie where it's like you have to be a scarer, and this kind of also gets explored a little bit more in Monsters University of like how there's not even that equal opportunity, right? Because you still have to be built a certain way in order to get the jobs you want to get. It doesn't matter how hard you work, right? There will always be like that systematic way down that like even if you don't fit into the mold of what the capitalistic society wants, then you're not going to be able to be successful in it in the same way somebody who does fit into that mold is, right? So that's Monsters University in a nutshell.
So quick thing. So you're saying, and you're claiming that there is a class race-based system in the world of Monsters Inc.
Am I wrong? Like, if we look at, like, so Sullivan's a Nepo baby who, because of the way he looks, gets into scaring things. And, like, do they kind of clap back at him because he, like, is kind of an asshole about the fact that he's a Nepo baby? Absolutely. However, does he still end up where he wanted to, even though he got the short end of the stick? And does Mike Wazowski, even though he worked harder than Sullivan because of the way he looked, still ended up being the sidekick, the assistant, even though he was, like, way better than Sullivan was, but because Sullivan is the type that they want, Sullivan got it.
Well, isn't it a pair? So you need
Well, no,
both
because Sullivan gets all the credit, and Mike Wazowski's just his underman, his servant, the guy who's an assistant.
No, because
he doesn't actually get any of the credit for the scaring they're doing.
While agreed, Mike does understand and realize that he's the one who trains Sully. Like, he's the one who wakes him up early, tells him all the ways to scare. He's the manager of it. So I agree to an extent.
The manager, but he's not. Sullivan's who's in charge. Mike Wazowski's the underpaid person who has to carry all the heavyweight for the guy who just kind of gets everything because he's the way he is.
Okay. And so, then you're claiming that this entire class-based system, even though it is technically solved, just changes the other way around at the end of the movie.
Yeah, so essentially what it does is, again, it's like, the whole point of the movie is to topple that scaring clinic and, like, recognize, like, oh, this is not an ethical way for us to be getting what we have. And then it's like, and so we have this revolution, right? We topple the big scary man, we get rid of Randall, who's completely self-aware and, like, recognizes that the way to get to the top is by, getting to the top.
Abusing children.
Yeah, right? And then it sounds familiar, right? Anyway, so he like, and so we topple that. And we have, then what happens, though, is we recognize that when we have a system like that, we can't get rid of it. It's kind of the same thing that happened in the American Revolution. It's like, we had all these British people taxing us, ruling us from a stance of power, a detached state from the people's experience, right? And so what happens is the American Revolution happens because we're like, F that, we don't want that anymore. This is literally what Monsters, Inc. does. However, we recognize, though, that we still have to survive. And the issue is while we are no longer funding the across the sea, the big man, we have to create our own big man in order to monitor our own survival. So we've now ended up back in the exact same society with crazy tax rates, a brutal economy, and things that are unfair, because it's just in a different font. It's just, instead of a king, we have, our Congress and our president and everything, right? So then, that's literally what Monsters, Inc. does. It's like, instead of the screams, we still have to have these people who are creating the energy, so what do? We make these kids laugh. And so now, yes, we flip the dynamic of, instead of the scarers being on top, now the monsters who are kind of funny and more friendly looking, right? The Mike Wazowskis of the world are now on top. But we still have a class system, because now the funny looking little silly goofy guys that people aren't scared of are now the top system, where the scary guys are now the bottom system. There's still a class, though, because Sullivan couldn't be what Mike Wazowski is, and Mike Wazowski can't be what Sullivan is, and one of them has to be favored in order to fund the society.
And so now there's an entire injustice. So just to quickly, not wrap up this question, but so we're basically saying here is that the British are scary monsters, and America are Mike Wazowski.
Well, I mean, it just depends on who you are, right? It's just, that's what I'm saying, is like, it's the same thing as, like, it's a smaller scale American Revolution, where at the end of the day, even though we go through this entire storyline and we try to find a solution, ultimately we still have to harass kids in their bedrooms at night.
Just like most political leaders.
Exactly.
All right. We're gonna get demonetized. So, moral of the story, British people are scary.
No, moral of the story is that a capitalistic society can't necessarily be toppled because of the way the system works. It still has to be a capitalistic society, even if we change who's in power.